Welcome back to Electrified Reviews. Today, we're going to be checking out the Antelope Pro from PICS. The Antelope Pro has got some juice with its two batteries, that's right, two, totaling 1,200 watt hours of capacity, a 500 watt motor, and an affordable price tag of $1,800. This isn't your typical mid-size fat tire e-bike. Let's dive into the specs and see if the rest of the Antelope Pro is as exciting as the capacity here. It's comfortable. The geometry is geared towards comfort rather than proper pedal geometry, but most folks who purchase this e-bike or similar e-bikes probably don't get too picky when it comes to geometry. It has a nice step-through design, and the measurements here lend themselves to being a great option for a ton of folks. PICS claims the recommended rider's height is 5'1" to 6'8", and since I'm neither 5'1" nor 6'8", I can't definitively say that's too far off or not. If I had to guess, and as a reviewer, guessing comes with the territory, I'd say this is a bike that would best suit riders for 5'4" to 6'1". If we had an adjustable stem, I could see us adding an extra 3-4 inches to that, but out of the box, I don't think 6'8" is in the cards. Do any giants here care to comment? If you just glance at the specs, you'll probably get excited about the fat tires combined with the front suspension. At least that's what I did, and the fat tires were dope, and mag wheels are always a good time, but the front suspension doesn't really add too much to the ride feel. Sure, a little bit here and there, but overall, I knew that it wasn't much smoother than if we just had the fat tires. I'd rather have it than not, but it's not the holy grail of consumer level e-bike suspension either. We do get a rear rack, integrated lights, and full fenders, so anything's possible, as long as it takes place on smoother terrain. The step-through design and addition of the commuter requirements means it is a decent utility vehicle. It would be a decent grocery getter or short-distance commuter option with the ability to do some flat and calm off-roading if required. The integrated lights are a huge plus right off the bat. They're not incredibly bright, but they get the job done. We don't get any sidewall reflective stripes on the tires, which would have been nice to see, but we do get a small bell, which is better than nothing. Braking is probably the top safety thing to consider when we're looking at e-bikes. The Antelope Pro comes with unbranded mechanical brakes with 160mm rotors. It's hard for me to look at an e-bike that's nearly $2,000 called the Pro and then say the brakes are great. They're fine, they do the job, but with a bike that weighs over 80 pounds, going 28 miles per hour, only providing us with mechanical brakes seems to be a bit on the amateur side of things. I'd recommend PICS look at upgrading to hydraulic brakes for future versions of the bike. And briefly here, while we're talking about upgrades, if PICS gave us hydraulic brakes, 180mm rotors, gave us locking mechanisms on the grips, and upgraded the front suspension, then we might be looking at a contender for best utility e-bike of the year. Now, those are a few things to change, but if they did, oh boy. The double batteries are an awesome feature. We get 1,200 watt hours of capacity between the two batteries, which means we can go fast and keep doing that for quite some time. The batteries don't drain at the same time, which we're seeing as common practice on a lot of double battery bikes these days. They also need to be charged separately. PICS does include 2 chargers, but it would be nice to see a unified electrical system that could utilize one input to charge both batteries. Once they're fully charged, you should be able to get 50 plus miles on a single or double charge, which puts the Antelope Pro into our long range category. Overall, I think the Antelope Pro is a decent e-bike that can do quite a few things that a lot of you probably would like to do on an e-bike. Is it worth $1,800? Well, I don't think so. Batteries are expensive these days, and I'm sure that's adding a bulk to the price here. But if we had some of those changes that I mentioned in the safety section, then yeah, it'd be a great buy at $1,800. All day, every day. But we'll need to see some of those upgrades before I would say it's a good value for the money. Thanks for stopping by and checking out what we do around here. If you've had some experience with PICS or the Antelope Pro specifically, we'd love to hear about your experience in the comments below. All right, guys, we are out on the ride test on the Antelope. What I love probably the most is this, cargo-esque kickstand in the middle. So it doesn't matter if you're in the middle of the road somewhere, you can pop it out. Now, if this was a real road, not recommended to just throw your bike out in the middle of it, but this isn't a real road, guys, so we could do that over here. From a looks perspective, just kind of looking at it again out here in the wild, it does look pretty compact, which is nice. There's a lot of people that they look at the cargo bikes and say, oh, I don't want this long frame. Like this isn't actually that long from tip to tip. So if you're looking for something a little bit more compact, but still has some of those functionalities like the rear rack, an option for a front basket, and the dual battery, the cargo kickstand right here, then this is something that sort of fits that bill. If that's something you're looking at. To undo the cargo kickstand, I just like to put my foot right there. That's kind of what I've been doing on most of these cargo bikes. So I'll just put my foot and then roll it forward. But let's hop on here and do a little test run. Let's go ahead and rip the throttle. Oh guys, throttle doesn't work when it's in pedal assist level 0. So if we are going to be out here, some ride tests, get some extra speeds over here. Now, I kind of like this as a safety feature, not having the throttle be able to work in pedal assist level 0. And so if you put in pedal assist level 1, then it's going to take off and we're going to get rolling here. Get this camera adjusted so you guys can see. Now, one of the things that, personal preference for me is I would rather have full access to the full, 20 miles per hour with the throttle. But in pedal assist level 1, it's only going to take us to 11, 12 miles an hour. And then once we put it up into pedal assist level 2, and again, I'm just still holding on the throttle, it's going to take us to about 14. 3 is going to get us to about 15. 4 is going to get us to 18. And then finally 5 is going to take us that full class 2 speed of 20 miles per hour. But something crazy happens if we start pedaling. We're going to cruise right on up to 20 miles per hour, guys, because this is a class 2 e-bike. Or at least that's how it comes shipped. Now, I've seen some stuff online and people saying, they can get 28 out of it. So it might be something where you could jump into the advanced settings in here in the screen and we could adjust that top speed, but we test it, generally we test stuff how it comes. And if you want to see somebody who's unlocked it, there's probably some people out there on the interwebs. That's where I go when I'm looking to unlock something. I say, hey, Google, YouTube, show me where the money is, that unlock money. Go ahead and hit this corner here. Now, from a handling standpoint, this thing handles really well. And this is, it's got a very similar feel to a lot of those, 20 by 4 inch tires that we test. But it feels, I'm not exactly sure what it is about it. It just feels a little bit more nimble than a lot of these other ones. So it feels like there's less turn, more burn. And we can cruise around like this for quite a while. Now with the brakes here, go ahead and hit a brake real quick. Super easy for us to lock up the tires, probably about 12, 13, maybe 15 feet on that one. With the mechanical brakes, they usually do take a little bit longer to stop and they require a little bit more hand pressure to do that. So on this bike, especially if you're going to be laying it down with cargo, especially if it is able to be unlocked to go that 28 miles per hour, then having hydraulic brakes on here would be something that I would recommend, right? And I know you guys who watch this channel a lot would think it would be pretty odd if I didn't mention we'd like to see some hydraulic brakes here. Go ahead and turn here. Nice cornering abilities here. Now, one of the things I do like about this particular bike is even though it's smaller, we don't have an adjustable stem right here, so we can't, raise and lower this. But the handlebars are nice and wide and do have quite a bit of rise to them. Nothing crazy. These aren't, faux BMXs or anything like that, but just enough to where my hands are in a pretty comfortable position. And then if I need to stop, come to a stop, and then I can rock out over on top of the step through. So the step through is super easy to get on and off. There's lots of ways that you can get on here if if this is too much for you. You can always set it down. That's going to lower it, so you can go like this and then bring it up if you need to. But for me, I'm not there yet as far as needing to do that. But if for some reason I had to, there you go. There's a little tip for you, a little e-bike mountain tip. Mounting, not mountain. Now, as far as shifting goes, we've got this Shimano 7-speed SIS index shifter up here, and shifts really smooth. Could probably use some minor adjustments out of the box, but for the most part, shifts pretty effortlessly through all of the gears. And if we're going 20 miles per hour, then this is a nice cadence to be pedaling 20 miles per hour, maybe a little bit on the fast side. So if we had a slightly bigger chain ring up front, or we just had that gear ratio adjusted slightly, then this would be probably even a little bit better of an experience. There's no ghost pedaling, but I imagine if we hit that 20 miles per hour, we probably would see a little bit of that. But as far as, if you're gonna keep it class 2, it's only going 20 miles per hour, then it's a pretty decent ride here. Now, as far as the no-handed tests go, there's a lot of weight in the back. I'm in the back, the motor's in the back, the extra batteries in the back. So you can notice if I let it go, you do get a little bit of bouncing here. Still do it, but there's just a little extra bounce up front, which could get squirrely if we hit the wrong terrain. So it still feels very balanced, but if you put your weight forward, it feels a lot more secure with both those wheels flat on the ground. And yeah, we're just grooving. We do have a little bell here. Gotta stay safe out there, folks. Nothing fancy, just one of those little bells that we've seen on a lot of e-bikes in the industry. But it's fairly loud. Yeah, that actually is pretty loud. So yeah, I guess some bonus points there for giving us a loud bell, even though it's again kind of on the cheaper side and something we've seen quite a bit of. Now, as far as pedal geometry goes, one of the things that I've noticed is I feel like the seat is a little bit too forward for me. So it feels like I'm leaning forward and then my feet are kind of coming back underneath me a little bit. Whereas, some other bikes, they have a little bit more of a forward, knee forward position to where I feel like all the pedaling is taking place out here. But if I'm doing this, now I feel like I'm just kind of making a little bit of a U shape. Now, to be fair, I probably would adjust the seat higher just a bit. And then you see the angle is going to bring that seat back a little bit. Also, there's a little bit of adjustment here, so we could probably bring that back a little bit. But that's just how it feels to me, is that it's just a little bit. Let's see if we can kind of crank it way up here. That's probably too tall, but I'm going to see if that fixes the pedal geometry that I'm feeling. Let's get some pedals in and see what that does. A little bit better, but yeah, it still feels like it's forcing me to be forward a little bit, if that makes sense. So that might be something to look at, whether you can get something to get an adjustment so your seat can go back a little bit further, or maybe they can look at just adjusting that geometry on future versions of the bike. Kind of like it up here, but that'd make for a silly review. Like, I'm on this bike and you can't see it. Let's go ahead and lower it down all the way. Now that's too low, but just gonna give us a better review angle here, and we can cruise. So you can probably even tell with the GoPro, like as I'm leaning further down and I feel like I have to lean further down, I point the camera down because it's against my chest right now. So as my chest coming forward, it's just showing that a little bit more. And yeah, right now we're just cruising. Motor noise wise, you definitely can't hear the motor. Very on par with a lot of these motors that are, this particular wattage. A lot of the 500 and 750 sound really similar. They're kind of all in the same vein, unless you get into, some of the higher end motors or some of the motors that are just tuned to be a little bit quieter. Now, one thing I am pretty curious about is taking this off-road, but it is extremely just muddy and nasty out there. So for today's review, we probably won't be doing that. One of the things that I did notice when I was kind of going around some bumps and stuff is you do get a little bit of rattling with that cargo kickstand down there. So that might be something to look at, whether that needs to be tightened or maybe the springs could be tightened up a little bit, or we could just find a nice way to maybe contain that when we're not using it. That kind of adds, an extra feature of, I got to bend down and undo the strap or something. So probably a lot more trouble than it's worth, not really solving the problem. And also, if you're going to be on the street, you'll never hear it. We do have suspension in the front, which is nice. So a lot of these, bumps and stuff, it's really absorbing it pretty well. But it's not right now because because your boy has this locked out. There you go. I was like, it absorbs it quite well. I was like, I remember it being a little bit bouncier than that. And then when you don't have it locked out, you know, the suspension works, which is nice. Nothing too crazy up there. You know, it's not like we got 120 millimeters of travel, but just that paired with these fat tires, yeah, it makes it nice and groovy. Thought I heard a car coming. I'm like, that would be weird. Over here telling you guys, like, this isn't a real road, and then just some big old car comes cruising down here. That would be silly. Well, anyway, guys, I think that is going to do it for our review on the Antelope. If you want to know more, you can check out our links down below. If you're interested in buying our review units, you can also check down below. We got a link. We are working with a local shop over here, so if you're interested in saving some money, buying any of these, you know, review units that we have, you can head there as well. And guys, thank you so much for riding with me, and we'll catch you on the next one.